Hello children, today we'll be doing with the second writing skill, that is story writing. So this academic year, you will be having 2 or 3 writing skills, in which the second one is story writing. You all might have read so many story books, isn't it children? Books based on morals, Jataka tales, Aesop's fable, biblical stories, historical stories, Nancy Drew, Famous Five. Now tell me, what makes a story interesting? Sometimes when you open a storybook, you say, oh, this is damn boring, I don't want to read it, and you close it. But some storybooks you feel like reading again and again. Same thing with the movies. Some movies have got very beautiful stories. You feel like watching the movie again and again. But some movies, you don't even feel like sitting for 10 minutes. You say, it's a boring movie, I'm not enjoying. You come out during the interval. Now, we generally say students should improve their reading habits, read a storybook. Storybooks or books help you to improve your reading skill. Storybooks are the best way to increase your knowledge as well as your reading skills. Now, how can you write a good story? What is actually a story? How can you become good story writers? It is not easy. Writing a story is not at all easy. How can you become good story writers? To make a story successful, you should have a good plot. The story should have good characters, strong, influential characters. And the basic theme of the story should be good. You should know how to present a story. It is rightly said that story writing is an art. Everybody cannot become good story writers. But then yes, with practice, you can. You can write a good story if your plot is good. If the plot of the story, the theme of the story, the main idea of the story is good, you can write a good story. You can use your imagination. Obviously, the story writing requires a good imagination, isn't it? You should be able to imagine, very interesting plot to write the story. So if your imagination is good, then you can develop an interesting story. You should use your imagination to write a good, interesting story. You can create suspense. You can create suspense so that the reader is motivated to read on. You know the suspense thrillers, children? Sherlock Holmes, Harry Potter. There are many other storybooks like that. Till the end, they keep the suspense. And then towards the end, when you read, you feel, oh, he was the actual culprit, but you thought he was an innocent man in the story. So the suspense of the story is also important. A story can be written in a beautiful manner if you have a good plot, if you can use your imagination to develop the plot, or if you can create suspense so that the readers feel like reading the book. The reader should be motivated to read your story. He should feel motivated, isn't it? He should wait till the end. What happened towards the end? And some stories, when you write stories, it should have a bit of twist and turn. There should be a twist in the story. There should be some comedy part, some tragedy part. You should introduce good characters. Conversations or dialogues can be introduced. You shouldn't actually drag a story. It should be interesting. The events or the sequence should fall one after the other. The reader has to feel that the story is interesting and he should feel motivated to continue reading the story. So let's see what are the different ways in which you can write a story. There are many ways of writing a story. You have studied all this, children, already. So the first one is from a given outline. This you must be doing from the lower classes. A reader should feel that the outline is given. The reader should feel connected when he is reading the story. A story outline is given. That means the whole plot is with you. You just have to fill in the connections and complete the story. From a given outline, you are given the outline of the plot and you are required to build up the story. This should be very easy and interesting. You don't have to invent the plot. Already the plot is given to you. You have to simply fill in the details in an attractive manner, in an interesting way. Okay? Then the second one is story based on a moral. Now in story based on moral, children, the moral of the story is already given. Each story generally has a moral, isn't it? If you have read about Aesop's fable, Jataka tales, it has a moral, a positive moral, isn't it? So here already the moral is given and you are required to illustrate the moral with the story. Example, slow and steady wins the race. It's a very common proverb, isn't it? A person may be slow, but if he continuously practices something, he generally wins in life. For example, let's say a child was very weak in maths, but he did not give up. He continuously practiced, tried again and again, and he was good at maths. Or maybe you remember, you first started cycling. When you first started to ride a cycle, so many times you fell down, isn't it? It was so confusing. Brake, handle, pedal, everything was so confusing. But then with continuous practice, you became an expert cycle rider, isn't it? So already the moral is given and you have to just write a story. It can be any story based on animal, person, or you can introduce characters and develop a story. Or it can be a proverb, honesty is the best policy. You know, in life, honest people are generally rewarded. Do you remember the story of the woodcutter who went to cut woods and his axe fell in the river? The goddess came with the golden one. He said, no, this is not mine. Then the goddess came with the silver one. Again he said, no, this is not mine. Mine is a normal wooden axe, and he was rewarded. He was an honest woodcutter and he was rewarded. So you can give any example, maybe from your life, maybe from anything, or maybe a boy who got a purse full of money. He was an honest boy. He went and gave it to the police station and they could trace the owner. So here in the second one, story based on moral, already the moral is given and you're expected to develop the story. And the third one is story from incomplete hints. This is the one which you were doing. You have done it last year also. You are given a couple of opening sentences. A couple of opening sentences means the beginning of the sentence is given. They have started the story for you with 1 or 2 sentences. You have to now develop it into an interesting story. In a way, a story is started for you. In a way, they have started the story. A story is started for you and you are required to continue it. Of course, it certainly needs your imagination to continue a story. For example, you can say, when I was coming to school, I saw, and there's a stoppage there. Then you have to think, I saw what? Something positive, something negative. Generally, you should write stories with good morals. It shouldn't be very negative. It should give some positive feedback or positive values to the person who is reading it. Okay? Now children, when you write a story, there are certain guidelines you have to follow. Certain guidelines which has to be followed. The guidelines are, an interesting plot is essential for a good story. The theme of the story, the main idea of the story should be interesting. The characters in the story must appear real. The characters must appear real. You should feel that they are real characters. The various important events must be related and generally follow a chronological order of sequence of events. Sequence of events, chronological order means it should come one after the other. In order it should move. Introduce conversations or dialects if possible. If it's possible, you should start some dialect, like 2 people are talking. Then you should give a suitable title to the story. Always a story should have a suitable title. A proverb or idiom can be used. You can use a proverb or an idiom. And last is write the story in simple English. Don't use and drag the story. Simple short sentences should be used. So I am giving you 2 questions here. You have to write the story in your notebook. The first one is an opening sentence. I have given the opening sentence of a story. On a cold morning, as I walked through the woods, I heard a loud cry. This is just the starting sentence. You have to add your own sentences, your own characters. And here it's given that I walked. So you are the main person. You are the main character in the story. You can say, I heard a loud cry. I went to see. When I saw it was a bird trapped there. Or you can say, I saw some puppies there. I saw a man fallen inside a ditch. So many things you can write. Name the characters and continue writing. This one is question number 1. You should write it in your notebook. Okay, minimum 3 to 4 paragraphs you should write. Second question is, write a story to bring out the following moral. The moral of the story is given. That is, pride hath a fall, which means proud people generally come down in life. You can give any example. You can imagine and make a new story for yourself. Write in simple English, introduce characters, give good names to the characters, make it a bit interesting. You can add suspense. I should feel that the story should be continued. I should feel reading the story. It's not that I should feel, oh, boring. Don't just copy something from the movies or other books. Try to imagine and write a beautiful, interesting story. Thank you, children.